This is the Final Word Pakistan Daily, coming to you casually leaning on the balcony of the National Stadium in Karachi. This railing might collapse. It almost did before when I climbed over it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What a day. Day 5. Things happened. Many of them, a lot of them, in sequence. Sometimes nothing happened for a while. Then a lot of things did at once. You, Adam Collins, have to tell them, the audience, all about it in the space of 30 seconds or less.
In a way, it's easy. 1 wicket in the first session, Abdullah Shafiq for 96. 1 in the second session, Babar Azam for 9, both via Pat Cummins. We get to tea. Pakistan only 4 down on the cusp of an extraordinary escape, or maybe even chasing down the total. They whack 20 runs in the 2 overs after tea. Babar Azam well beyond 150 at that stage. Mohammad Rizwan, a most worthwhile ally in that task. In the end, Babar out for 196, caught it short leg, 3 wickets in a hurry, 2 in a row for Nathan Lyon. Rizwan strikes a century in the penultimate over. No way I'm doing this inside 30 seconds. They get there. They survive 171.4 overs. It's the longest a team has batted in the 4th innings to secure a draw ever, excluding timeless tests. Rizwan finishes on 105 not out. What a bloody star. Thanks for coming. We go to Lahore.
Holy smokes. What a finish. I'm casting my mind back to after day 2 when everybody was going, oh, it's so boring, oh, they're batting for so long, this sucks. And learned observers in this part of the world said, this is what you have to do in Pakistan.
Wait.
They say this is what you have to do. It'll move later, but you have to have the patience to get yourself in a good position in the game.
You earn the right.
First.
You earn the right, they say. They go, you're not entitled to be in a good position in Pakistan. No. You play 2 or 3 days of good cricket, and then you can have that. Pakistan had their 2 good days at the end, by the way. So they were able to get back. But Australia earned the right to have a chance. They just couldn't complete the job.
And once again, they couldn't complete the job in the 4th innings. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of angst and gnashing of teeth about that, about why are they so terrible. But I think we are more likely to focus on what a belting freaking test match once again. Now, Australia not polishing off 4th innings has given us these grandstand finishes. It gave us the Ashes Test in Sydney.
That's true.
It gave us the India Test in Sydney. It gave us India at the Gabba, and it gave us this one, which was thrilling and exciting because we saw one of the greatest ever rearguards by Babar Azam, the Pakistan captain, who until this day, his highest score in Test cricket was 143. He'd only made 500s before this Test match. He got to his 6th, and then he got to his highest score, and then he said, I guess I'll keep going. And probably now the fans in Pakistan will be like, he never converts double hundreds. You know, he's got a real problem in the 190s because he batted. And let's put this into context. 604 minutes, 603 minutes, 604. The second longest 4th innings ever by an individual player after Michael Atherton. 425 balls, that's the 4th most ever faced by anyone in the 4th innings. 196, there are 6 players who've made double hundreds in the 4th innings, and he's the highest non-double hundred. He nearly joined them. He nearly became the 7th. So 7th highest score ever in the 4th innings of a Test
27
match.
Away from Headley as the highest scorer as well. It's not as though he had far to go.
No, exactly that. And like, had he batted through to the close, he would have overtaken Atherton in terms of minutes. Like, extraordinary performance starting on day 4, going through to the end of day 5, when Australia had this in the bag. They were 500 ahead and they had nearly 6 sessions to bowl at Pakistan and they didn't get them out.
Yeah, this isn't about, I mean, there'll be some people out there saying, why didn't they enforce the follow-on? Probably so they didn't have to bowl for like 9 sessions in a row. That might be something to do with it. Others will say they batted too long in the first innings. Well, if they didn't bat for any longer than the first innings, they would have lost this Test match. So they're both offset by the events that played out, I suppose.
What was the margin in the end? About 80?
443, 506. You did a subtraction. Is that 63?
60 something.
63? Yeah, about that. It's funny how your mental arithmetic goes to pot once you leave high school. I mean, Australia did everything right until they had to bowl in the 4th innings. And even then, they didn't do an awful lot wrong with the ball necessarily, although there will be some points we go to in a moment. It was that Pakistan batted out of their skin. There's a reason why this has never happened. 171.4 overs is the longest a team, I'll say it again, has ever batted in a non-timeless test to secure a draw. They've been playing Test cricket for 146 years. Granted, not all of it has been played over this stretch of time, but the sample size is gigantic.
Yes.
It's massive.
2,500 Test matches.
2,500 Test matches. Probably 2,000 of them meet this criteria.
That innings, that team innings, was the 6th biggest ever in the 4th innings all time. And of the ones ahead of it, 3 of them were losses. So in terms of teams who actually salvaged something out of the match,
well, you've got to go back to Johannesburg, that Atherton innings, to find a comparable sort of number of overs that a team's done in the 4th innings, and that was 165. So they passed that by 6.4 overs. And
But not
Babar
just
Azam-
overs, but continuing to score. Like Mohamed
Yeah,
Rizwan
yeah.
saying, you know what, bugger it, I'm going to make 100 here because I feel like it.
I mean,
instead of blocking it out.
I mean, some serious moments from Rizwan towards the end. Right,
Yeah.
let's press fast forward. Rizwan gets dropped on 91 by Usman Khawaja. I think that it is worthy to be critical of Khawaja still wearing his helmet at cover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure whether this is getting much traction on Twitter, but he didn't need to be wearing his lid. He came out of, I think he was at leg slip at the time.
Well, they had 7 around the bat,
and they took 5 of them out because they didn't want to concede the single from what would have been the 4th last over. I think maybe the 5th last over.
Yep.
So Khawaja takes
back.
the lid off. Keeps the lid on and drops back to about 20 metres. Well, maybe not 20. 4 or 5 pitches over, a position where you would never wear a helmet, right?
Thinking, I'll drop back for 1 ball and then I'll be back in close for the next
Couple of overs,
over.
no point taking the helmet off. I know it's a small thing to nitpick on. He was so good throughout the test. I even love the way that he walked off the field after the presentation. Sorry, I kept rubbing my nose. There's mosquitoes about. It's not that I'm doing other things after hours.
Not in this country.
Not in this country. Not in this country. No way.
No, sir.
No,
If anybody's
sir.
watching, if anybody
We're
from
not
the
in the market.
ISI is watching this, no.
We're not in the market no matter what our colleagues to our right say. And I love Usman Khawaja's test match. I love his story. I love everything about what's happened in the last couple of months with him. But had he had his time again, he wouldn't have a helmet on fielding where he was because that is not something you're ordinarily doing. Taking a catch like that in that way with a lid on. Anyway.
With the grill, because it was down low, it was sort of ankle height, got slapped straight to him, and the grill's probably in the way when you're looking down.
No,
and maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. He makes a lot of runs with his helmet on. He hits the ball with his helmet on.
Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but maybe it would have.
knows?
But anyway, that would have changed the test match, I think, because they would have been 8 down at that point with a number of overs left, and that would have been a different dynamic bowling to Hassan Ali than it would have been Rizwan at one end and a fairly solid Noman Ali, which we saw in the first innings too, a guy with, 16 years of professional experience who's made 120 50s. I mean, that's exactly the kind of guy you want walking out at number 9 to save a test match as one of your bowlers who can bat a bit. So,
and then if you rewind for a while, they also dropped Babar Azam twice in 2 balls. All of this off Mitchell Swepson. So, and I'll leak this. This is a hot leak. This is the start of my piece that I'm writing at the moment. Everybody's been talking over the last couple of weeks about Shane Warne debut 1 for 150. Mitchell Swepson none for 156. If one of those catches had been taken and he got 1 for 150, Australia would have won the test match.
That's
and
true.
He would have been a match winner.
That's true. One small, I would say with those chances, they weren't, you can think a silly point catch or a short leg catch, you get a certain picture in your mind, a ball rearing up, hitting an edge, and these were both squeezed out.
Yep.
So they're the ones where, and I won't do it for camera because I'll be out of shot, but where you are so low that you don't have enough time to do anything. Either it's ending up in your hand or it's not.
Yep.
They were just stiff. It wasn't like bad fielding from Labuschagne and Head. They were just very unlucky that it happened in consecutive deliveries. On commentary, I said, gee, Labuschagne's done well to cut off runs there, moving to his right. Little did I know it was on the full. So it gave you a sense of like how quickly the ball came off the bat. But you're right, how unlucky was it? And not to mention the leg before wicket with the 3 metres on the DRS.
Yes.
Geoff, you explain that.
Okay, so 2 reds and the bookend reds, hitting in line, hitting the top of leg stump. How can that possibly be not out, you ask? Good question. Because the middle one,
impact.
It's the yellow because he's come 3 metres down the pitch and it's hit him over 3 metres in front of the stumps. So even though the ball tracking says it's going to hit leg stump, there's some conjecture about whether it's completely accurate or whatever it is. But it was going to hit leg stump. I think it was the flipper. It was dead straight. It skidded on. If it wasn't, it was the top.
Yeah, I don't think he has a flipper. It was a skidder.
He did.
A slider skidder.
He did try to bowl a flipper in the first innings.
Oh, right. Well, I haven't seen him land one the way that it might have executed the way. But, with that and also with the umpire's call with line, I've always had a bit of a problem with this, the 51-49 thing. Lions one, it's red, and then it's yellow on the basis that, 42% of the ball's not hitting, not 51% of the ball. I've always had the view that if it's hitting the stumps, it's hitting the stumps.
Sure.
I don't think that we should quibble. I get why they want to maintain some agency for the umpires, and they do it via that. They say it's about the projection
not being entirely accurate, even though it is basically
but it's accurate
entirely
enough
accurate.
when it's 1% when the decision's been given on the field. If it's accurate enough for one, why not the other? I think Lyon had a right to throw the towel in there, I reckon, because Barber was on 160 and those 2 drop catches were on 161. But he held his nerve and he eventually got Barber, albeit 30 runs down the path and maybe 90 minutes on as well.
Yeah, many overs down the path, and that was more to the point. Is that Babar Azam just looked to defend mostly through that last kind of section, those last couple of hours of his innings, but Rizwan was scoring at the other end. So the runs were still ticking along, and there was still this possibility. And I think we sort of jumbled up the order, and this is fine. But maybe we'll hop back to the first session after this. But
sure.
there was, they came into the last session needing about 180 off the
196, and they hit 20 in the first 2 overs.
Yeah, and at that point you thought, are they going for it? Are they going for it? Is it on? And then, because, Rizwan hits a couple of boundaries, sure. Then Babar Azam skips down the pitch to Nathan Lyon and plonks him over long on. And you're like, they are going for it.
Game on.
And then they started defending again. And you're like, they're not going for it.
Game on, Miles.
So Rizwan just
That'll mean nothing to anyone that isn't of a certain age in Australia.
No. But it would have kept the Australians worrying about, are they actually going to try to get the runs here? Do we need to have boundary riders out? All of the rest of it. So that was, all of that was the end of the day, and all of that was set up because of what Abdullah Shafiq did with Babar Azam yesterday, but into today. They were, just shy of 200 when they resumed this morning. They were 314 short of victory, and he bats through until 3 overs short of the lunch break. Abdullah Shafiq gets to 96, started getting nervous, wanted to get the 100 before lunch, plays at one he shouldn't against Pat Cummins. It's a bit too wide and edges it to slip, and Steve Smith hangs onto a catch where he dropped a few. But, God, how good was Abdullah Shafiq? 22 years old, 4th test match, 7th first class match, Pakistan all over, straight in he goes. He made 100 last week, and he nearly made another one here.
So Yunus Khan's the only Pakistani with 10,000 test runs? Yeah, Babar Azam will be the second and Shafiq will be the third.
You heard it here.
It's just clear to me. I've seen enough. This guy, I'd be staggered. He's got the wrist of VVS Lakshman and sort of the patience of Rahul Dravid. I mean, I know I'm using 2 Indian cricketers there, but Shafiq is going to be a global superstar.
But they have been being posted all week to, all over everything saying, Australia follow on, Laxman, Dravid. So you've got them on the brain.
Maybe you're right. There are some similarities to Kolkata here in different ways. But Abdullah Shafiq, I think it's a great privilege that we're watching him in this series. At age 22, early in his career, we'll bang on about this in 10 years' time. We'll say we were at that series when this guy announced himself to the world. I love everything about what he's doing at the moment. I was gutted that he got out for 96. I would have loved a century here in those circumstances to follow the slightly easier one that he made last week to get the ball rolling at Rawalpindi. But yeah, again at Lahore next week, and after that, I'll take everything you got going on that one, Geoff.
Can I also point out on the scorecard, Abdullah Shafiq 96, Babar Azam 196, Mohammad Rizwan 105, was it? 105. Everybody else single figures. Everyone else who batted. So it was a feast or famine. Yeah. But yeah, look, he gets out just before the lunch break, and you think, okay, that's the one. Like, Australia really had to work for it. They had to sweat for it, but they've broken the partnership. That's the one. Fawad Alam batted okay for a little while after lunch, but eventually he edges off to Cummins as well. And I was Cummins, what a mensch, right? Like, it is hot. He has bowled over after over. He's got a ball that's not doing anything. The reverse didn't really work. And so he just keeps nailing this bloody back of a length line into the pitch until he gets someone to nick off. One to slip, one to the keeper. How do you do that on this day 5 kind of dusty, crumbly, nothing, no pace, no bounce, and he still goes, I'm Pat Cummins, I'll get some.
It's just the consistency of and CricViz have done this analysis before. It's not so much about the consistency of his lengths. He mixes his lengths up. It's the channel he bowls in, which is so relentless. So when he goes a fraction fuller, he can entice the foul straight because they're expecting it to be a little bit, the usual shoebox that he lands it in, back of a length that you're referring to there. That was certainly the case with Fawad Alam. Angling in, older ball, maybe there was a hint of reverse, but a screaming catch from Carey. Again, it may not quite look like it, but he was up so close. And he would have been moving on his right heel to go in that direction, to dive that way had the ball beat the bat. And instead he had to change direction and stick his mitts out. He didn't have time to move his feet. And his gloves were in the right place and it sticks. And credit to Carey, who I think had a very good test match behind the stumps, actually.
And with the bat.
Obviously made 93 to help lay that foundation with the blade. Yeah. So well played there. But yeah, Cummins 2 wickets. If anything, if you wanted to be super critical of Cummins, I would say Stark should have bowled more today.
Captaincy-wise, and especially in the last 12 overs, they took the new ball. Stark bowled 1 over, Cummins bowled 1 over, and then he finished with spin. And by that point, if Swepson hasn't got you a wicket in the session and you've dropped all the catches off him, he's probably not going to.
Yeah, I'd have been backing Stark towards the end, and also that Labuschagne didn't get used to the very end, and he turned one gigantically out of the rough. I'm not saying that it's hard to nitpick because they had a plan and they were sticking to it, and they did change ends a number of times. It wasn't like they were rigidly sticking to it, and they did chop and change with short spells from the quicks to preserve them, presumably for the final, the last hurrah.
And they tried everything.
It was just in the last hurrah they didn't bowl too much.
And there were a couple of overs in that last hurrah, in that last 12 overs, where Rizwan couldn't farm the strike. They had the tail ender, it was Sajid Khan at one point, then Naman Ali. They had those guys on strike. They could have brought Stark on to try to blast them out, and they didn't. And it felt like an opportunity missed. Sajid Khan looked pretty comfortable against the off-spin. Naman Ali as well against the leg spin. They blocked it out effectively enough, but it was all spin for those last 8 overs or whatever it was.
Yeah, Naman Ali. Oh, I swear, at this moment, you mean everything. He was, as I said before, he has the technique for this, the experience for this. Rizwan, bless him. The fact that he kept trying to score. I mean, let's just go through what he did on 99, shall we? On 99, he charges Nathan. I mean, seriously, 2 balls to go in the penultimate over a test match, right?
Yeah. With 3 wickets in hand.
All he needs to do.
So if he gets out, they have 2 tail enders left to come in.
Yep. Now he needs to get a single in one of those 2 balls or block one or the other. And no dramas him trying to find one. By the way, that is a measured risk, which is fine.
Sure.
But the field is ringed around him in order to offset any quick single. So what does he do? He charges at Nathan Lyon, nearly spoons a catch back at him, nearly gets run out with a direct hit. I mean, bless him.
That was hilarious.
Bless him. And then the next
he's like
ball,
6 metres down the pitch and he has to turn around and dive back in while Lyon actually throws the stumps down, which is good from Lyon.
And then next ball, he gets it just wide of Cummins and he gets through for that single. But, he knew he had 2 balls to get to 100 and he wasn't going to miss out. Then he gets back on strike because of it and sees out the end and hits a boundary to finish the test match off. And, that's his second test ton. Rizwan, as Simon Kadich mentioned on comms, he's only behind 3 players for batting averages as wicket keepers at this stage. It's Gilchrist, AB and one other I can't quite pluck out of the air, but they're pretty bloody good
Andy
cricketers.
Flower,
Maybe
like
Andy Flower. I think it's Andy Flower. Very, very good cricketers. And I said that Rizwan on the call might be one of the most important cricketers of his generation. And, I reckon he's going to end up being just that. Had to wait a long time, but remember, he's a 3-format wizard. He's got just about the best gloves in the game, and he can make tons in all 3 formats. I mean, he is the definition of a complete package, and now he's done it in the 4th innings, saving a match in 170 overs. There's not much this guy can't do.
3-format wizard. Did you see that mistranslated tweet from one of the Chinese spies that was accusing Americans of being deceitful wizards? Like, someone didn't quite get the word right. So look, watch out for the wizards. You maybe don't want to be a wizard in certain parts of the world either. They'll take care of you. I loved was, he's on about 90, 91 maybe, and Pat Cummins is bowling with 4 overs to go, or whatever it was, and he just goes, I think I'll play a massive hook shot for 4 and then I think I'll slap one through cover for 4. He hits a full toss for 6 at one point. It was like, we're batting for a draw, what of it? I'm going to make 100 because I can. Porque no las dos.
Exactly. I mean, in some respects, that all as a subset of the final session becomes our Hall of Fame. We should move to our Hall of Fame. It's getting dark here. It's probably time we start packing off and moving to the next city. I've got so many notes written on my page here. I don't really know which was the Hall of Fame bit. David Warner with the hammer today. It was Cummins yesterday, Warner today. So credit for little Davey Warner, who, when he was serving his suspension a couple of years ago, built a house, didn't he? So he's got the skills with the hammer the tools. So that all seemed to make sense. But anything else you spotted around and about? The newspaper press is waiting. I love that. That's real old school. Pete Lawler relayed that. They held the printing presses until the test match was over.
Hold the front page.
I reckon that is just brilliant. It says that test cricket around the world, we sometimes debate the health of it. It's alive and well in Australia, and indeed it's alive and well around the ground here at Pakistan. The school kids in today, they were enamoured with what they were seeing. What a great school excursion, coming along and spending a day at the National Stadium and seeing a performance like that. They'll never forget it.
A man with a trilby on must have run into that printing press room with a bit of yellow paper and the hat band and went, hold the presses, while he had a cigarette. I don't know. I think everything was Hall of Fame. I think the entire day was Hall of Fame. I mean, everything we've talked about Mohammad Rizwan is Hall of Fame. He was hilarious in every sort of way and innately skillful. I feel for Mitch Swepson because people are now getting stuck into him for his figures, but he created chances. He had a really bad first spell, horrible first spell, and then he came back and started pitching the ball and bowled really well and didn't get wickets, which he should have had, where he was let down by his teammates. And especially, it's the poignant twist. Maybe this is Hall of Fame, even though it's sad. The fact that it's Khawaja who drops the catch. The guy who's presented him with his cap, Queensland captain, all the rest of it, they're so close. And just the look, I mean, Swepson looked over, he saw it go down, and he just put his hands on his knees and kind of leant forward and went, And the
non-look as well. Swepson walked up to him because his baggy green was stuffed in the back of Khawaja's trousers. And he just pulled the baggy green out, They didn't say a word. They didn't need to. Clearly, they're very close mates, and that's just the game, right? No dramas. No one means to drop a catch, but still that feeling of hurt they both would have shared at that moment.
Yeah.
It's sad, as you say.
There's some
sad Hall of Fame
symbolism in that. You've taken my baggy green away. Please give it back to me.
Hopefully he gets another go. I think there was enough there from Swepson. Just to close on this point, I didn't really get a chance to... Yeah, there was some pretty ropey bits from him today, but got to remember, there's only one Shane Warne. Mm-hmm. When it comes to bowling in the same spot hour after hour, landing
only one Tony Lockett as well.
There's only one Tony Lockett landing it on a handkerchief for that one guy did that as a wrist spinner, and he doesn't play anymore.
Yep. No.
Mitchell Swepson plays now, and we should judge him by those standards, not by unrealistic standards as a leg spinner. So hopefully he gets another opportunity next week. I would pick him next week. Whether Ashton Agar also plays, that's a matter for when they get there. But either way, I'd be keeping Swepson in the team. I wouldn't dump him after one. That could do long-term damage to him.
I think it's a reasonable argument, and I think that when you are 500 ahead, your spinner can afford to have a couple of bad spells.
Yeah, that's right.
And bowl some full tosses and get hit for boundaries. And it doesn't matter as long as they come back and take wickets. And he did come back and create the chances. His teammates didn't take them. Not his fault.
This has been the Final Word daily here in Pakistan. Our equipment's being unplugged. That's time for us to go. Thanks for your company throughout. Patreon.com/the Final Word. If you really like what we do, we'll record a weekly show in Lahore tomorrow. We probably won't be filming or recording a Storytime episode because we've got too much to do and we are knackered. Bye from us at Karachi. We've loved being here. We can't wait to return someday in the future.
The Malachi in Karachi. See ya.